How's it going, you wild demonologists? Your favorite paranormal investigators, Uncle Logan Myers over there, and me, Henry Hill, are back today to review the brand new film in the Conjuring franchise. This being the eighth film in the franchise. There's eight other films, obviously the Conjuring films plus the spinoffs. This is the eighth one and the third in the Conjuring franchise, and it is titled The Conjuring. The Devil Made Me Do It. And this one was a little different than the other ones. It was this one was directed not by James Wan. This one was directed by Michael Chavez, who directed The Curse of La Lorna previously within this kind of franchise that was created by James Wan within the same universe here. So he was brought on to do this third film. And we kick it off in the 80s. And I'm going to let Uncle Logan over here start it because he's a child of the 80s, as am I. He loves the 80s. And I'm just going to say this before he kicks it off.
You're the devil in
disguise. Yeah, so the third film, they kind of take a different approach compared to the first two films, which are much of the haunted house ghost way about going to horror films and introducing a bunch of like creepy characters. Third film, The Devil Made Me Do It, based on a case in 1981 Connecticut, true case of essentially a kid that got possessed by a demon and ended up killing somebody. But they set up with the film, which is actually probably the best part of the movie, in my opinion, is the exorcism of this young kid in Connecticut. You probably see it in the trailers, but you see him like kind of transforming and like turn into like a demon, like head spins and body contorts, and really cool setup. You see where Ed and Lorraine Warren are at in 1981, still trying to get all those demons and for more artifacts for their house and their museum. But the setup of the film is this exorcism of this kid and how the demon basically goes from one body to the next and going into the body of Arnie, which is one of the main characters of the film, really having to do with his character and him being possessed and killing somebody and going to prison.
Arnie Johnson is the one that ends up possessed. He's over at the house when the exorcism's going on. He's dating the daughter of this family and the sister of the little boy who's possessed.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, this opening scene is really intense. The best part of the film by far for me, the most tense, suspenseful part, got me into the film right away. Unfortunately, the rest of the film didn't live up to this opening scene. This was the most tense part, the most suspenseful, the creepiest by far, seeing this exorcism, seeing this little boy go through this, his body contorting, his bones snapping as he's contorting, and just an overall like awful kind of scary scene with this demon inhabiting this little boy, and Ed and Lorraine there, and a father performing the exorcism trying to get this demon out of this little boy. And it's a really, really crazy scene. It really sets the stage for the rest of the movie. Unfortunately, the rest of the movie doesn't live up to this, though.
It goes downhill pretty fast after that.
It felt more procedural after this. It felt like maybe something that you'd see in like Law and Order or something like.
Yeah.
It's more of a court case, and it never had the suspense or the tension or that dread feeling that the rest of the Conjuring films had.
Like I was saying, the first two films are more of like the spooky haunted house, kind of film, like things jumping out at you. And this movie just wasn't scary at all. I think the beginning was, I guess, the scariest part of the film, but I don't think throughout the duration of the film I actually felt scared or jumped or anything. There was a few cheap like jump scares, but it just definitely didn't have that tone of that atmosphere that James Wan created. You could tell that it's definitely a different film, and they tried to something different with it and it didn't work.
I've never actually seen The Curse of La Lorna.
So it's bad.
Is bad. It? Yeah. It's judging bad. By this film, I could imagine that it wasn't very good either. It's not like it was terribly filmed or anything. You can just tell the quality's down overall from a James Wan film. The cinematography is not there. The scares that he does try to do he doesn't build the scene up into them. He just kind of throws them at you, and it just doesn't work overall. The CGI used in the film, there's a lot of CGI in it. Some of it, I'd say most of it wasn't that great. There was an overuse of it. There could have been a lot of practical effects here that would have worked better, I thought, in making it more scary and believable. And just the overall, it going into the court case and more of a background with Ed and Lorraine. It was more storytelling than we're used to seeing in these Conjuring films, where those are more straight up horror. This one felt like half court case, half trying to be a scary movie. And overall, it didn't turn out great, but the film wasn't all bad. I mean, it was by no means like a terrible film or anything. I won't say that. The still following Ed and Lorraine and seeing some of their backstory was nice. And just with those two as the leads, your film's boosted right there from the performances from Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. They're great as Ed and Lorraine. I love learning more about them, seeing their past when they were young, how they got together, how strong their bond is through everything, and seeing their story continue. That's really the heart of this film and what made it, made it watchable. While it wasn't scary, it was nice to see a continuation of the Ed and Lorraine story and see in this film how the story changes with them, with Ed having a heart attack in the very beginning, and seeing where the story goes from there, where they're facing some new things together as a couple and they have to work through it. And several times their lives are put at risk, and they have to really depend on each other and come together in order to get the obviously find the demon at the source of this movie, and go and investigate and find out how to stop this evil.
And like you were saying, it's a approach like a cop show or something like that. It's an investigation. They're trying to find evidence to back this guy that he was possessed by a demon. That's why he ended up killing him. And I guess the only one one of the few in history, the only one in history that has brought this into a case like this, a murder case. So they're playing, like cops or working with the cops, trying to find this evidence. And you see Lorraine kind of going off and using her senses to try to figure this out, while Ed is having heart issues. He actually has a heart attack, and he has these heart pills throughout the film that he's always forgetting, which is kind of like a funny part throughout the movie. He's like, "Where are my pills? I lost my pills." But really the heart of this movie, like you said, is Ed and Lorraine. Patrick Wilson, Vera Farmiga are just fantastic together. They really sold and carried this movie, kind of with a lackluster script. They really showed this bond, this love they have for one another, and also solving these cases and helping people and getting rid of demons and ghosts and all that stuff. So in terms of their characters, their character development was really good in this movie. And all the stuff in the background didn't really matter. It was all about them. And I thought it was a really kind of morbid love story at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I felt the same. It was cool seeing them when they were kids, sort of how they met, Ed being an usher at a movie theater.
Yeah.
And sort of meeting like that. And we got to see how their love grew over time. And something that we saw in the flashback, this gazebo that where Ed and Lorraine shared their first kiss, comes back into play by the end of the film. So this movie's really worth watching just for the two of them. Otherwise, it's very forgettable. It's the worst of the three Conjuring films. Not a lot of scares here. If you're hoping for a straight up horror film, you're not going to get it here. There are a couple moments that were kind of scary. I guess the beginning part obviously is great. If they could have stuck with that same sort of suspense and horror at the beginning, then this would have been a lot better film. But overall, yeah, this is more investigation into the occult. They end up Ed and Lorraine end up meeting this character played by John Noble, who knows about the occult. His daughter got involved in it, so he knows about all this witchcraft and Satanism. He knows about this totem that they find, and they figure out that that's how the family, the Getzels, were possessed, and how that little boy got possessed because there was a witch totem under their house. So they figure that out, and they're able to connect it to these other cases of Satanism and devil worship. So you can add another totem and another thing to their collection in their house, where they have all these demon. They obviously have Annabelle, and they have the painting of Valak from the second one. And then by the end of the film, they add this other, witch totem that brought all this demons into this family and possessed everybody and possessed Arn here. The case itself, I mean, that's a fascinating thing with this boy. This young kid was able to argue that he was possessed by the devil, and ultimately at the end he does have to do prison time He does 5 years, but he doesn't get convicted for murder. It's just for manslaughter. So he's able to actually get out after this and live the rest of his life. And he actually ends up marrying the daughter of the family, with the boy that was possessed. So she's still stuck with him even after this. So it'd be interesting to go back and see the actual footage of the real person. Obviously, this movie's going to take so many liberties. It would just be too crazy for this stuff to be real. Ed and Lorraine obviously helped out here, but it would be really interesting to actually go back and see this case and see how they're able to effectively argue demonic possession and get this kid off and let him live the rest of his life. And I'd like to see what happened later in his life, if anything else ever popped up where he got in trouble again, or if this really was a case of possession.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if he got possessed again. Like an older man came
Right.
back, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting take, and this happening back in 1981, which back then was probably looked down upon. That's crazy. That can't be real. It's 2021. There's been a lot of evidence and research on this, so it's more acceptable these days. But back then, it was probably hard to prove that in court. Especially in a murder case like this with Arnie. So yeah, definitely pretty interesting. I think the overall execution of this film was just not very good, all over the place, and definitely didn't feel like in the realm of James Wan. I give him kudos for trying something else, but just didn't work. So just kind of stick to the formula and that worked in the first two films and make, good characters, but also keep it creepy and keep you on the edge of your seat and creeped out by that. And they kind of missed that in this film.
They missed the mark in this film. James Wan, hopefully he'll return to the franchise. He had some other films that he was working on. Obviously, he's involved in Aquaman.
Oh, right.
Some other projects, so he wasn't able to come on, but maybe he'll be enticed to come back to direct another one, because I'm sure the franchise will keep going. There's certainly more cases that Ed and Lorraine worked on, and I don't think we've seen the end of their story. Although the ending of this film, if it was the last that we saw of Ed and Lorraine, it was a nice wrap up for their arc overall. Just showing how much they loved and cared for each other. And we got to see some real footage of them at the end and hear some of the exorcism. They recorded it on tape, so we got to hear some of the little boy with the demon inside of him screaming, and we got to hear some of the exorcism and see some interview footage with Ed and Lorraine too.
That's one of the scariest parts of the movie, was in the credits, was the actual exorcism of the young kid. He's like,
I'll kill you, mom and dad, you sons of bitches. Fuck me, Jesus, fuck me.
And there's a lot of ripoffs and like nods, but it's a lot of ripoffs from other horror movies in this. Obviously, The Exorcist in the beginning, the priest gets out of the car looking at the house.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street with the waterbed and a
Right.
bunch of others. Like, it wasn't very original. It was very obvious. Like, that kind of annoyed me.
Yeah.
It's cool to pay homage and have some nods to movies, but don't be so obvious about it.
Ultimately, yeah, I could see where they're going with this. It was very interesting. It just wasn't executed very well. They needed to mix in some more horror here and build up the tension. They swung and they missed. They tried. I mean, it wasn't awful, but it wasn't. I'm not going to be rushing out to go rewatch this film. I'll watch the first two. So
I probably won't watch this again, honestly. I saw it once.
Yeah.
It's like the Le Verona. I'll never watch that again. It was awful. It's either like hit or miss in this universe, but it killed at the box office over the weekend and actually took the #1 spot over Quiet Place 2. So horror's hitting the box office and making some money for the movie industry, which is fantastic.
It's awesome to see horror movies bringing back the box office. The first couple of movies that were big. I mean, we saw Spiral 2 come back. So yeah, it's been all horror at the forefront, which is awesome. Start up the box office again, get it going before these big summer blockbusters come on. And I'm happy. Obviously Quiet Place 2 was phenomenal. This one, not so much, but still we got to see Ed and Lorraine again. So not all bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And it made so much money. I think it's probably going to see another film, unfortunately, but hopefully Juan will return from his high horse of being in the DCU. Return back to what he's known for, being horror, making good horror films at that, and bringing back some practical effects to make it a little more believable. But with that being said, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. I liked it. I didn't hate it. I just thought it was okay. They played it really safe, and it was kind of a hollow movie and kind of empty. It felt like it was missing a lot, but I didn't hate it. I like that they tried something new. It's probably my least favorite of the three films. So I'm going to give The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It a 3 out of 5 Patrick Wilson hair pieces.
This movie's all about Ed and Lorraine, so therefore I was thinking 2.5 out of 5 hair pieces for me, but just for them, I'm going to give it a little higher. I'm going to go the same as you. 3 out of 5 Ed Warren post-heart attack hair pieces.
Have you seen my heart attack pills? Where are those heart pills at, girl?
Where are they, Lorraine? You hiding them? You want me to die or something? So what did you guys think of The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It? Were you guys able to watch this on HBO Max, or did any of you make it out to the theaters to see this? You guys, we had, obviously we had A Quiet Place 2 last week, and we have The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It this week. So horror is back. That's good to see. We hope you guys enjoyed it well enough. Maybe some of you guys enjoyed it more than us. Let us know in our comments. As always, don't forget to click subscribe on our YouTube channel here. Follow along with us on all our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Stay tuned for some great new content coming out. We're going to be reviewing plenty of stuff this week. There's so much coming out. We're going to have our hands full. We can't wait to do it, though. We love reviewing stuff and talking with each other about these fun TV shows and movies that are coming soon. We have Loki coming this week.
Yep.
We'll have a couple more episodes of Star Wars The Bad Batch to review.
It's press week for E3. So I've been checking out some video game news and trailers and kind of behind the scenes stuff that have been released in the press this week. First time ever. So I'm very excited about that. I was watching that a little bit today. So I'm hoping to get some news out on our social media outlets, maybe our YouTube channel, I'll do a video or something, talking about some upcoming video games and things to be on the lookout for in the video game industry.
That's awesome. I can't wait to hear some news about some upcoming PlayStation 5 stuff. Obviously, me and Uncle Logan here were able to secure PlayStation 5 consoles. We're some of the lucky ones. A lot of people still without one, probably even going into next year, it sounds like. So it's pretty crazy that we were able to get ourselves a hold of some consoles. We both played through Miles Morales. I'm actually on the last mission now, so I'm about to finish that. So that's been fun, but I can't wait for some games to come. I mean, we haven't even scratched the surface of what this console has to offer. So I look forward to hearing what you hear out of E3. That's very exciting. Getting press passes this year, just another step in the right direction for us, getting more access to press materials and these other different avenues for Cinefellas. So that's very exciting. And stay tuned for another Cinefellas podcast this weekend. The Wild Boys are getting back together. It's been a few weeks, so we'll have lots to catch up on. And stay tuned soon for a Fellas giveaway to come. There's some exciting titles coming to us, courtesy of Warner Brothers Home Entertainment.
All I got to say, except the power of Christ compels you.
So until the next time that we're on a demonic investigation here with Ed and Lorraine Warren, this has been fun. This has been a review of The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. So until next time, we're both signing out from Cinefellas Studios. He's in Lit in the Hills, and I'm over here in Jayville, Illinois. We're in Central Illinois getting wild. Cheers!